Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, I'm John, this is Video True Nerd, and welcome to Total War 3 Kingdoms. Oh, I am so excited we get to dive into this properly. I have been looking forward to this for a very, very long time indeed, because Total War 3 Kingdoms is taking Total War to brand new places, and I don't just mean to China, that's a really cool setting, and we'll be having a little history lesson, don't you worry, I'm sure you're looking forward to that already, but I mean in terms of taking the entire franchise to a brand new place, because Total War has been a very similar game for a very long time in some ways. Ultimately, the city building side of Total War boils down to creating the technology and the money that you need to maintain armies. Have more armies, conquer more territory, ultimately have enough armies to paint the entire map your colour, and thus you win. But here comes Three Kingdoms with a whole bunch of brand new sexy ideas, turning the game into something a lot broader and arguably a lot more interesting. Politics is now a big deal, diplomacy is a big deal, trade's very fleshed out, and crucially, you don't just win by having a giant pile of armies and painting them out your colours. For the first time ever, there's all sorts of alternative ways to win, including to some extent playing tall, and that's really exciting to me. But even more so is the amount of variety in the game. Now, Creative Assembly were going in that direction already. If you played Warhammer 2, for example, there were lots of unique mechanics for each of the races in that game. So, food for Skaven, slaves for Dark Elves, that sort of thing. So each playthrough with a different race felt very distinct. But in Total War 3 Kingdoms, that has been cranked up to 11, and it's great. So say you want to play a political diplomatic game, well then you might want to play as Cao Cao, who's got a unique credibility currency. No one else in the game gets this apart from him. It's a mechanic exclusive to this one character that lets him influence how other characters feel about him, up to and including triggering proxy wars, making two of his rivals fight each other so he can go and pick off the weakened survivors. Or maybe you're more into alliances, diplomacy, federation style play, then you might prefer Yan Chao, who unlocks the ability to have coalitions and alliances way earlier in the game than anyone else does, and actually gets bonuses to his faction for every alliance and coalition that he's part of. Of course, if you enjoy just being a massive death ball, rolling around the map, trashing everything in front of you, there's plenty of good characters for that as well. Like Zhen Zhang here has the infamy meter, where every time she wins a battle or takes a settlement, her infamy ticks up, giving her troops more and more morale and making her even more dangerous going forwards. And everyone's got their own unique twist or mechanic, and yeah, there's 6 members of the coalition, 3 governors, 2 outlaws, and 3 yellow turbans. So that's a lot of campaign variety, I like it a lot, but there's one faction that I like more than any other. So I was saying earlier, I love the idea of not having to paint the map your colour, and there being other approaches to victory. And one class of character sums that up better than any other. And that's the governors. And in particular, my personal favourite, and who we're going to be playing as this playthrough, Kong Rong. I flipping love Kong Rong. You see, Kong Rong plays the economic game. He is a master of making money, especially through trade. So he wants to keep a handful of friends, allies, people he's peaceful with nearby, so he's always got people to trade with. But when it comes to war, he's no slouch either. As a legendary strategist, he gets access to some of the most powerful crossbowmen in the game. And crossbowmen are amazing. Super long range, armor piercing. I love them. They're just wonderful. And what I love most about Kong Rong is, like all of the governors in this game, he cannot just paint the map his colour to win. Governors have their own unique path to victory. I'll talk about that when we get going, but before we do that, we've got to understand the context of what we're going into here, because the Three Kingdoms is not a bit of history many people know much about. So sit down, it's time to learn some stuff. So, what actually are the Three Kingdoms? Well, the Three Kingdoms is a fairly brief period in Chinese history, just after the collapse of the Han Dynasty, but before the Jin Dynasty. Because this is broadly how Chinese history has been going for 2,000 years before this game begins, and for quite some time afterwards too. There's a dynasty, it rises up, everybody's happy with it, it gets horrendously corrupt and incompetent, it collapses, a new dynasty rises up to replace it. In fact, this was seen as the natural order of things, so much so that one of the opening lines of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, one of the texts this game is based upon, is anything long united must divide, anything long divided must unite. Anyway, the point where this game begins is about 200 AD. For 4 centuries, the Han Dynasty's been in control, and for the most part, it's been considered a golden age in Chinese history. But as we approach the beginning of the game, it's very much on its last legs, with rampant corruption causing unrest all over China. But what was it about this exact moment in time that after 400 years caused the collapse of the Han Dynasty? Well, 2 things happened simultaneously, and they're both a little bit on the odd side. So the first one is, a bloke shows up out of nowhere, name of Zhang Ju. He stands up and he says, "Hello, I'm a wizard, and I met a ghost in a cave who told me I have the divine authority to unseat the Han Dynasty. Also, I had some ideas for agrarian reforms." And the crowd of peasants that had gathered round thought about this for a second and said, "Yes, that strikes me as eminently reasonable. Let's all follow this guy into a violent uprising." And that was the Yellow Turban Rebellion, because they all wrapped yellow cloth around their heads as a way of fulfilling a slightly poetic sort of prophecy thing. Again, wizard, so doesn't necessarily make a huge amount of sense. And this was a big rebellion, by the way, so big that the Han Dynasty couldn't possibly deal with it. So instead, local warlords, governors, and local warriors who just felt like beating up some peasants all had to do it instead. Now, they did a very good job killing all the leaders, but as this was a popular uprising, every time it was put down somewhere, it popped up somewhere else. So it turned out to be quite difficult to extinguish for good. But the important consequence of all of this is there are now a bunch of warlords with much bigger armies than the Han Dynasty itself has access to, which is very bad news indeed. Now, that wouldn't necessarily have been the end, it could have still worked out, except the Emperor picked that exact moment to drop dead, and his heir was a child. Now, child emperors in China are always a problem, because basically they just become puppet rulers, and everybody argues over who gets to do the puppeteering. And on this occasion, it turned nasty. History's a bit confused on this point, but let's just say there's a fair few factions in the palace. One person kills someone in a different faction, that faction kills several people in the original faction, then everyone just starts stabbing everybody else, and the Emperor, his brother, and his mother just decide, screw this, we're out, and make a run for it. Where they happen to run into the first of our big players, Dong Zhao. And I apologise, I'm going to mispronounce everyone's name, I'm very sorry about that in advance. So Dong Zhao at this point has possession of a young puppet emperor, a giant army, and the imperial capital, meaning he just decides, screw it, I'll be emperor, or to be precise, regent, but effectively emperor. Enter the coalition, a bunch of warlords who've decided, hang on, I don't want this Dong Zhao guy being effectively emperor. So this guy over here, Yun Shao, decides to form a coalition, which everyone agrees to because Yun Shao has the best hat. With a coalition of so many warlords, they beat Dong Zhao in battle. He's not a particularly good loser though, so he decides to take the child emperor, flee west to his capital, where he starts at the beginning of the game, and burn the former imperial capital to the ground. The coalition meanwhile is unable to give chase, because none of them actually trust each other, and they haven't actually dealt with the Yellow Turban Rebellion yet. That's still floating around and causing a fair bit of trouble, so none of them dares to leave their own land unguarded. And so we end up with a stalemate at the beginning of the game. A bunch of warlords floating around, all of them at war with Dong Zhao. And here we come back to Kong Rong, because he is not technically a warlord, he was never part of this coalition. He is a Han governor, but he's at war with Dong Zhao anyway, because Dong Zhao's just a dick and pretty much everyone's at war with Dong Zhao. With the single exception of Ma Teng, who seems to be completely unaware that Dong Zhao is blatantly bloody evil, but whatever. If you want to actually play on Dong Zhao's side, this is who you want to be playing as. And that's the scenario we begin the game in, ladies and gentlemen. Basically, it's a free-for-all. Everyone's at war with the Han, everyone's at war with the Yellow Turbans, the Han and the Yellow Turbans will attack pretty much anyone indiscriminately too, warlords will just grab whatever they can get their hands on. It's an absolute total free-for-all mess, and I love it because it's such a dynamic opening to the game. But you know what, we've talked enough about history. One more thing to cover off though, and that is the romance down over here in the bottom right. So, we have a choice between Romance of the Three Kingdoms and Records of the Three Kingdoms, named for two different takes on this period of history. Records of the Three Kingdoms, a historical account from the 3rd century AD, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, a more heroic epic sort of thing from the 14th century AD, still based in history, but with a lot of embellishments. Now, I'm going to be playing in Romance of the Three Kingdoms just because I think it's the most interesting and unique version. Because one of the interesting things in this game is characters and how they interact. The character focus of this game is really, really interesting. That's brand new to Total War. In Records of the Three Kingdoms, that's kind of shuffled a bit out of the way. There's still character interactions in the campaign map, but there's a lot less of it in the battles. Like, duels get taken out, nothing replaces them. General abilities get taken out, nothing replaces them. So, you lose a fair bit of content. But the big problem is the bodyguards in Records of the Three Kingdoms. Because when the generals aren't larger-than-life individuals, you can get mixed up in the front line. Though, as I've said before, these are not Warhammer leaders. leave them in an extended melee, they will run into an awful lot of trouble. But when you actually give them an elite bodyguard, it means they start blurring into each other. Because in this game, vanguards are supposed to be on the front line. Champions are supposed to be taking out other generals, but not mixing it up with regular troops. Strategists and commanders are supposed to be hanging out at the back, providing benefits to your other troops. But once every single type of general comes with an elite unit of cavalry, there's no reason not to basically use them as elite cavalry. And once every general arrives with a unit stronger than anything else on the field, basically if you've not got as many generals as the enemy has, you're going to lose because you can't kill the elite cavalry. So yeah, I'll be playing as Romance because I think it's a lot more interesting, you get a lot more content, and some of the most interesting new stuff, characters in particular, are really strongly emphasised in that mode. But if you do want a really traditional Total War experience, much more like Rome or Medieval 2, absolutely, Records is right there for you, and I think it's really cool you do have that as an option. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, that's enough discussing the game. It's time to dive in, because there's a lot to cover here, and I cannot wait to get started.
Luo Yang is set ablaze by Dong Zhuo, my lord.
It is barbaric. What loss of life, of culture?
His iron grip is unshaken. He heads west with the Emperor.
A tyrant controls the empire. These are dark tidings. Yet there are still pressing affairs closer to home.
Yes, Lord. The Yellow Turbans persist. Their greatest strength is in your lands.
We must rebuild. Schools, learning. It is wisdom that will see us through this crisis.
And what of the coalition?
Cao Cao pulls their strings. That wretched snake. He has them fooled, but not me. I shall never trust him, and neither should they.
Your wisdom is well known, Kong Rong. If you apply your mind to our current woes, I'm sure all of China will listen.
I love Kong Rong because he's basically just a massive nerd. Also, fun historical note, the reason why he says in his little opening there, we definitely shouldn't trust Cao Cao, is, in the actual Three Kingdoms period, Kong Rong and his entire family was put to death by Cao Cao. So, you know what? Fair enough, probably don't trust that guy. But I am not going to allow that to happen. On this occasion, Kong Rong is going to beat the hell out of Cao Cao. But not just yet. For the time being, yeah, we've got bigger problems, because Kong Rong is officially marked as a hard opening, and the game's not kidding, because you are right in one of the nastiest bits of the map. You can just kind of see in the minimap down there on the bottom right. I am surrounded by angry red territory, including some very nasty elite yellow turban leaders. Still, it would hardly be Total War if we didn't begin with a small army on the field and a small enemy army in front of us to engage in Baby's first battle. Let's dive in, I'll give you a quick reminder of how this all works. And I've just got to give this game credit for its absolutely stunningly beautiful battle maps. They are right up there with Warhammer, it's absolutely gorgeous. And also, they're really interesting. There's lots of actual stuff you can use. There's very few maps in this game that are just, here's a flat bit of land, have a battle on them. So on this particular occasion, we had a battle close by to a bridge. So that bridge is actually on the map. So if I actually go over to, being able to see the UI, neither of us gets to actually stop beyond that bridge. It's in no man's land. But if either of us had the ability to vanguard deploy, which some generals do, they could actually take up a defensive position on the far side of the bridge and turn this battle into a bridge battle. There's trees that you can hide within, so if you want to, say, take your cavalry, put it inside a forest, you see there from the little eye symbol, those guys are now hidden, so potentially you can actually hide troops. There's just a lot here that makes the battle maps really, really interesting. Anyway, my army itself, another reason I like Kong Rong, by the way, he's got these really nice blue banners. I find that a very relaxing blue. So, I've got myself 3 generals, Kong Rong and his 2 friends, Zheng Yan and Wang Zhu. And as you can tell by their colour coding and the way they're laid out, each of them has a different job and troops assigned to them. Kong Rong himself is a strategist, meaning, in short, he's good with archers. You want to be giving him some archers. Zheng Yan is a champion. He's good at assassinating other enemy leaders in one-on-one duels. And Wang Zhu is a commander. He's good at managing your front line, passing on morale bonuses to them so they stand and fight for longer. Yeah, this is a tiny army and they've got no archers whatsoever, which is going to be a problem for them because archers are absolutely brutal in this game. So if you go in with a range advantage, you're going to do well. So let's kick things off here. and they're moving straight in my direction. I'm going to send my champion forward, because I would like my champion to take out this guy if at all possible. And here we go, we're moving into range of him, and he is challenging me to a duel. Now, officially, his strength is similar to mine, so this might not necessarily go that well, because my guy is no legendary champion or anything, but first blood goes to him regardless. Lovely. And his army will not get involved in this. They will actually work around them. So as a result of that, this fight's just going to get on by itself. We need to keep an eye on that. We can see what's going on up here. So far, seems to be going pretty well for me. His troops are coming at me. And yeah, because they're just melee troops, we're going to be wanting to... I kept my horses in that forest, didn't I? Yes, I did. So we're going to be wanting to surround these guys as well as we can. So, yeah, you guys just start heading up here. You guys start heading up here. We want to be ready to surround and hit these guys in the side and the flank, because encirclement works very, very well indeed. Now, the problem we've got here is, while my archers are very powerful, these guys are holding shields. And actually, you see there, they actually hold them in a sensible position, which is really, really damn cool. The animations in this game are lovely, by the way. So they're holding their shields up, and as a result of that, if we look at their unit card over on the left there, down to the bottom left, chance to dodge arrows, 50%. So these guys are pretty effective at marching into archer fire. My archers can't do that much against them, so we're going to have to murder them the traditional way. My troops start moving into position here, you guys start moving up, you guys start moving up, and cavalry is moving into position too. We are ready to charge in momentarily. In fact, yep, here we go. Those guys ready to charge. We may as well charge too, get the bonus, get the cavalry around the back. Momentarily, we are going to be closing the net on them. They won't stand and fight too much. These are just basic troops. They're already starting to waver because they're surrounded. In comes the cavalry in the rear, and that should be instant collapse. Move over here, and they should collapse too. So those guys are going to naff off, but we need to check whether they are broken or shattered. If they're broken, they might reform down the line. So right now they are broken, damage sustained. They could in theory regroup, but it's unlikely to happen. My troops are swarming all over them. So yeah, these guys will break soon. How's the fight going? Fight seems to be going in my favour. I've got myself an ability to hamstring this guy, though yeah, that actually just reduces his speed. So not actually that useful in this particular fight. Let's just get down over here and enjoy the fight, by the way. So yeah, that's my guy, just tossing him around with a big stick. You can see exactly how much health everyone's got if you want to know how the fight's going precisely. So yeah, this is all being calculated off chance to hit, chance to dodge, which is all on the unit card. So momentarily he should be going down. And there he goes. That there was a knife through the throat. The enemy general has fallen, and therefore we win because his troops already broke up there. Nice, simple stuff to kick us off here. So we get a bit of money for winning, and we get to choose what to do with an army. Very traditional stuff. Take a bit of money, take some bonus military supplies, or take a bit of replenishment for my troops. I didn't really take much in the way of damage in that, so I'll probably just take the money. And for the next 3 turns, I get myself some bonus morale, because that was Baby's first battle, so that was technically a quest. And the game is continuing to tutorialise just for the first turn, saying, hey, there's a farm over there, you might want to go and capture it. So let's get a bit more into our characters here, because that's the big new focus of the game. So these guys have all got a little green tick next to them, meaning everybody gets on with everybody else in this army. As a result of that, as time goes by, if I keep them fighting together, they'll become closer and closer friends and work together more effectively. Most factions give you a starting army where their generals all get on, with the exception of Zhang Zhang, the bandit queen, who I believe starts off with someone she hates, just to represent she's a little bit hard to get on with. And this isn't just, hey, we happen to be friends, there are actual reasons for this, because everybody has a bunch of traits. Now that's not new to Total War, but this is the first time that characters have decided they have opinions of each other based on traits that are complementary or clashing. So in the case of Kong Rong, he's kind. Now that gives him a bonus to his 5 main stats, but it also means that he likes other characters who are kind, and he dislikes characters who are cruel. Now that doesn't just affect people who he's actually working with, it affects everybody else in the world. So Kong Rong's going to have problems doing diplomacy with a cruel faction leader. And as I said, he's a strategist, so as a result of that, his primary stat is cunning, because his job is to basically make archers really, really damn good. And because his cunning stats are very, very high indeed, that means his archers specifically get more ammunition than archers that belong to another character. Now that's important, because archers in this game hit really damn hard, but the limiting factor, the way they're balanced is, they don't actually get much ammunition to carry into battle. So strategists being able to shoot so much longer than everybody else is a huge advantage. But what's really interesting about this system is it doesn't mean you just want to specialise in your one primary stat. Mixing and matching can create some really powerful commanders. So the perfect champion needs plenty of resolve, so he's got the health to survive in duels, but he would also benefit from instinct so he can hit harder, as well as expertise so he can avoid more incoming damage. Anyway, my army didn't really take too much in the way of damage during that fight, so we're probably safe to move straight on to this here livestock farm the game wants me to take, because go on, this is just the first turn you're kind of supposed to have. So in we go, let's take care of this. But we need to be careful. This here is a sub-region, not a town, and sub-regions in this game are interesting because they all have unique battle maps. Luckily, this is a livestock farm, which I think is one of the easy ones. Yes, indeed. So, certain territories, like ports, mines, are very well defended. Limited approaches, defensive towers, all of that good stuff. Farms, however, because they're just, farms out in the middle of a plain, don't have defences. So they're much more vulnerable, and these guys don't have choke points or towers to hide behind. Here we go. So a couple of buildings they might be able to use to cover their flanks if they were to draw up, say, right here. But for the most part, nothing too dramatic. Also, yeah, nice hill in the middle of no man's land, some trees where we could both hide some troops to move them around without being seen. Yeah, interesting battle map, but these guys do not have as big an advantage as they would do in certain other sub-regions. Looks like they've drawn up on a small hill over here. One thing to note, however, yeah, they've actually got 3 units of archers on this occasion, and 2 units of decent enough cavalry. So we've got to make sure we're committing our troops in the right direction, because of course, standard rock, paper, scissors rules of Rome Total War applies. I've got myself a couple of basic G militia here. Light halberds will do decently well against mounted troops, so we've got to make sure that some of these troops are taking out the cavalry. Meanwhile, I've got my own cavalry right here, but more important than that, these cavalry have shields with a 65% missile evade chance. So these guys are basically dedicated archer slayers. So we absolutely want to be making sure that these guys are chasing the archers off the field. Other than that, a handful of peasant spearmen, but those guys have got basically no armor, 0 chance to dodge missiles. My archers can tear them apart. Right, I think I know what we need to do here. We just need to charge forward. So, get my halberds straight into their cavalry, hunt those guys down. Everyone else charge forward, see if you can hit their various spearmen and whatnot. And I'll actually send, 1 unit of my halberds over towards their archer captain. They don't actually have a commander here. They've got 1 slightly more elite unit of archers standing in his place. So he's actually much better than the units next door, like double the health right there. So be a bit more careful of him. And my horses want to be leading the charge, because they can take the arrows while taking relatively small numbers of casualties. My champion probably wants to stay out of this for the most part, purely because he took a few knocks during the last fight. He needs some time to chill out before he's ready for more. And here we go, into the enemy's archer range. They're going to open fire on these horses immediately. But when they do, shields up, guys. I think you can handle this very nicely. So in come the arrows. But, yep, we can actually take that pretty easily. We're not taking too much damage, and more importantly, we're covering the infantry as it moves up. These guys will probably be on skirmish mode, meaning they'll probably naff off soon. So we've definitely taken some damage, but we're starting to chase off these guys, and their cavalry's coming out to meet us. So I'm just going to lead off that cavalry. I don't really want to engage it. That's absolutely fine. It is just stopping. There we go. So their cavalry is naffing off. They don't want to be here anymore. I can just basically keep their archers dancing just by moving my cavalry nearby while the rest of my army moves up. And my archer fire is now coming in and doing very, very good work indeed. Those guys are just backing off. Cavalry keeps dancing. They've taken some knocks, absolutely, but it's not a massive deal. And now I'm just going to bring these guys around the back over here. So in come my troops, lovely. Now, sadly, they have seen off some of my G militia, probably with a bit of a charge bonus there. It's not really what he specialises in, but I'm going to send my commander to go and assist with these cavalry over here, together with these particular G polearms. So hopefully you guys will do a better job seeing these guys off, because yeah, it doesn't look like they've got a particularly good big crunching attack in. I've got reinforcements coming in. These guys are starting to break, which works for me. And hang on, where are you guys? Oh, you guys are stuck in a melee with his cavalry. don't really want you to do that. I want you to pull away and hit the archers, please. In comes my commander. He's going to start doing some damage over there. He can definitely fight a little bit. And now their line is starting to collapse, and that's freed up a bunch of pole arms I can actually use to get on top of here. My strategist may not be good in a fight, but because he's on cavalry, he can at least chase off these guys, and it looks like they're pretty much ready to collapse momentarily. And there we go. I think the last of them just broke. We should have won, or very close by to it. No, my strategist is actually running straight into some recovered spears. Get him out of there. Archers, open fire. These guys are just basic peasant spearmen, so yeah, their defense is poor, their morale is poor, they will break immediately, and job is done. Looked a bit dicey there for a second, we've taken some casualties, but you often do going into sub-regions. So, that place has been taken, I want to occupy that, I don't want to loot it, because, yeah, I'd rather actually just move in, get this place running as soon as possible. And there we go. I've taken myself a town, get myself some support for the people, just for some bonus public order across the empire. And when I say empire, I mean, you know, 2 territories, but whatever. More importantly, we've completed our first province. So this here is the province of Beihai, which is made up of 2 settlements, the town itself and a livestock farm, which is the bit we've just taken. Now, the livestock farm will always be a livestock farm. It's not like a little mini region in Warhammer or whatever. This is just what it is. We can upgrade it, absolutely, and make it a better livestock farm, but broadly, it will always just be a place where cows live. And that, of course, means you want to think very carefully about how to upgrade a particular town, because livestock farms do one thing in particular. So you see here right now, this is generating a bit of food for me, and as I level it up, it's going to generate a bit more, together with a bit of money, but that's not much, really. And food in this game is really, really interesting, and I think it's been improved a lot from Thrones of Britannia, where this system was kind of trialled. Because these days, food isn't constantly consumed by armies. Instead, food is for upgrading your cities, the other half of the province. So right now, this is a level 2 city, meaning it's only got 2 building slots and can only have certain basic infrastructure built in it. So naturally, we're going to want to make that grow sooner or later. Now up to level 3, that's totally free in terms of food, it just like feeds itself somehow. Once you start building it into a small city, however, the cities start fundamentally consuming food. You can't bang food, by the way, that count at the top left simply says, okay, this is the amount of food you're producing, let's deduct the amount of food you're consuming. The biggest city in the game needs 46 food a turn to feed it, and that's an awful lot. So naturally, that means I'm going to raise this city to help support that livestock farm so it produces as much as it can. So here we go, the government support building chain. While this is built inside the main city, any territory inside this province, including the livestock farm, generates plus 25% food and plus 10% income from peasantry, which is the sort of income that the livestock farm produces. So absolutely, we're going to be wanting to get that in as soon as possible, because as we level that up over time, yeah, that ultimately leads to doubling the amount of food that that livestock farm can produce in the long run. So that's definitely something we want to be producing, not least as, yeah, it's very, very cheap indeed, it can be built in a single turn, and the extra income off peasantry will be very, very useful too. So at this point, everyone needs to just rest for a minute, because yeah, we took some fairly significant casualties during that battle. So just leaving him in town overnight so he rests there, not a bad idea at all. One more thing we can do though, just to strengthen my characters a little bit, and that is start to personalise them. Every character can have 1 weapon, 1 set of armour, a horse they ride into battle on, 1 follower, and 1 accessory. So let's see what we've actually got here. We've got ourselves a stone monkey that increases instinct and satisfaction. This increases authority and satisfaction. So, we probably don't want to give that to Kong Rong. Instead, my good friend Wang Zhu, he can have that because authority is one of the stats most important to him. So there we go. He's been given that, and on top of that, his satisfaction goes up, so he's less likely to be annoyed at me. In which case, end this turn and see if anything else shows up, because yeah, right now, we are surrounded by angry red territories that might in theory attack us. Enemies on literally every side, so we've got to be careful here. We've got to be very, very careful indeed. Move time on here, because Liu Bei is somewhere nearby, and Liu Bei is great. I love Liu Bei, he's generally cool. There he is, I thought he might show up this next turn. So, we've got ourselves Liu Bei taking over the iron mine down the road. Now, Liu Bei is normally really, really damn chill. At this point, do we actually have a border with him, technically? I'm not sure if we do, because while we have a land border, there's no road that runs directly from my territory in Bay High down towards his iron mine. So we might not be able to do much with him yet, but we should at least say hello, because Liu Bei is awesome.
Welcome, friend.
And also he starts off with a massive army, so I really don't want to annoy him. Here we go, so right away, he's fond of me, because I'm at war with someone he's at war with too. Both the Han and the Yellow Turban. So, we've got off on the right foot here. And welcome to the new diplomacy system, where all of a sudden, there is a huge amount of stuff you can actually ask for. And actually, it looks like we might have enough of a border. He's willing to do me a trade deal. Marvellous. And Kong Rong flipping loves trade, because Kong Rong makes a ton of money off it. And he really wants this trade to happen because he could do with a little bit of money. So absolutely I want it to happen too, but because he's actually really keen on that idea, that means I might be able to get him to pay a tiny bit of money for it. Let's see if he's willing to go for that. Yes he is. So let's just actually start boosting that up. And this is a nice little bonus for me at the start of the game right here. Oh, 600 gold to start me off. Well, that's just flipping perfect. And a giant pile of money too every turn. 322 gold is the value of the trade. So, let's propose that. He signs that deal. Everything is good. Oh, and even better, he really wants a non-aggression pact because he's got enough enemies nearby right now. So as a result of that, yeah, we can probably extort even more money out of him. There we go, another 445 gold for a non-aggression pact. Beautiful. So, that'll do for the time being. We've made a very, very healthy amount of money out of that. Now, let's talk about trade, because trade is really, really interesting indeed. Because a livestock farm generates a type of goods. Understandably, it generates cows. Meanwhile, the iron mine that Liu Bei took, naturally, that generates iron. So if we trade, he has access to livestock, I have access to iron. And you can see there's a lot of resources in this game. So let me give you a really simple example. One of the resources that neither of us own right now is tea. Now, tea houses are a really good way of making loads of money. They produce a spectacular amount of commerce income, but you need to have access to tea or you can't build them, obviously. And that means if you want them, you either need to go and take some tea or trade with someone who has it. But you only have so many trade deals you can do, unless you're Kong Rong, in which case you begin the game with a bonus 3 trade route. But it's more interesting than that yet. Because the benefit from trade isn't distributed evenly. Instead, there's a certain finite amount of money that trade is worth. It is distributed unevenly depending on your trade influence score. And Kong Rong is really good at getting his trade influence up. So right now, his trade influence is 117. 100 base boosted a tiny bit, but not much at all. Liu Bei is only 110. So as a result of that, trade influence is in my favour, and I'm making slightly more money than him. So he isn't making 322. He's going to be making more like, I don't know, 300 or something. And as my trade influence goes up and accelerates away from him, I'm going to make more and more money, and he's going to make less and less. And I suppose this kind of represents where the economic activity is actually happening. So for example, if I build markets and shopkeepers and upgrade them inside my empire, my trade influence goes higher and higher, which represents the fact that I'm going to make more money out of trade because I've got places to sell the iron. Meanwhile, if he's got no marketplaces, he's not really got anywhere to sell the cows I'm sending him, so as a result, he's not making much money out of them. I'm getting more benefit than him. It's an interesting system, and Kong Rong, his special meter at the top there, this is his unique currency that only he has access to, is specifically about trade influence. So because we've done our first trade deal, that's now ticking up by 5 every turn. So give it a bit of time, that will now go up to the first stage of trade monopoly, giving me a bonus 25% to my trade influence, meaning I make even more money. But every new army he fields reduces his trade influence. Now that doesn't mean he wants to play a pacifist game, it just means that Kong Rong, you've got to be aware there's a trade-off between the amount of military you've got and the amount of money you're making. Run a small number of really elite armies, you can make a ton of money. Field more armies, you're going to have to accept the economic hit associated with that. And that's a really cool mechanic, I like that, it's really interesting. Still, now I've got a giant pile of money burning a hole in my pocket thanks to Liu Bei, trying to figure out what to spend it on. If I upgrade my settlement, it still won't have walls, unfortunately. I think the towers might be a little bit better as a function of it being a slightly larger town, but yeah, maybe not the most important thing right now. I'm more worried about my livestock farm. I'd definitely rather keep control of that, and in just 3 turns, I can upgrade that to be much, much bigger. That's lovely right there. Now, time for me to pick my next target here. The thing is, if I just zoom out here, you see here I've got a nice little backbone that I could actually make my own in this part of China. Good little economic base from which to launch myself. So what I want really is, Liu Bei's very likely heading south because he's got a special ability that lets him take out Han Empire cities really easily. So he's probably going to be heading in that direction, meaning as soon as he's done with that, I believe this city, is attached to this lumberyard. So what I'm going to do, therefore, is swing down here and take this lumberyard so he doesn't get ideas about taking the lumberyard and the fishing port, because I don't want him to do that. So my army needs to move down here in this direction. Lovely. So we can get to the lumberyard next turn, no problem whatsoever. But I could do with some reinforcements here, and I'm making enough money up in the top left there to justify it. And I've got the money to hire them. So let's start recruiting here. So, here's how armies basically work in this game. There are certain basic units that literally everybody has access to. So we've got ourselves, basic saber militia, decent assault infantry, with a shield, not bad for walking into arrow fire, decent enough. Halberds, obviously good at dealing with horses. Archers, they're archers, you understand how those work. Cavalry who are better at the charge versus cavalry who are better at missile defense and seeing off archers. But everyone also has access to special troops based on their class. So the commander has access to these elite Jan Sword Guard cavalry. Basically the same thing as these guys, but a bit better. Honestly, to my mind, they're very expensive for the difference, so I'm not 100% convinced by them. The champion, meanwhile, gets access to heavy spears. But Kong Rong and strategists in general get the best deal to my mind. They get crossbowmen. And crossbowmen are amazing. See, crossbowmen get range of 250 compared to the standard archer range of 200. So these guys are elite long-range troops. On top of that, they get 45 armor-piercing damage, which is not bad at all. The only downside is they can't carry so many bolts into battle, but with a good strategist leading them, that doesn't really matter, because they get bonus ammunition regardless. If you've got the money for it, however, and thanks for that, Liu Bei, here we go, a special unit available to Kong Rong himself, the Fury of Beihai, his special unique troops. These guys have pretty much got double the ammunition of a normal crossbow unit, they run a bit faster, and they can equip themselves a little bit better in melee as well. And best of all, strategists get trebuchets, which is very, very important indeed, because they can knock down towers. And towers in this game are brutal. So, you know what? I think we're actually going to be getting one of the elite Fury of Beihai immediately, together with one trebuchet too. Then again, that is so expensive. You know what? Let's just go for a basic unit of crossbowmen for the time being. We'll keep the special lads for later. That means I've got a lot more money I can spend on the other guys' troops. Now, I can see this lumberyard right here. What do I actually know about these guys? Plenty of archers and some basic peasant spears. Gotcha. So I can do with plenty of shields to protect myself as I charge forward. Here we go. The cheapest shields I've got are these basic assault infantry. So let's get a handful of them down immediately. And one more unit of basic halberds for you, because those are pretty damn cheap indeed. Now, that's a pretty sizable investment, but we are going to be needing this army sooner or later. That'll do for the time being. The question is, do I want to advance into the territory immediately? Because Thrones of Britannia style, when you recruit a new unit, it's weak at first and needs time to grow. But it does get a bonus to mustering, so it recharges faster. Yeah, I'm going to wait one turn for safety here, just to be sure we're okay. So, everyone else gets their turn. Liu Bei starts moving around too. Let's say he'll probably be heading south, but he won't be able to move in immediately. No, not just yet. And everyone else is starting to make their moves too. So, way over here somewhere, Yan Shu, one of the other major warlords, has actually started attacking the Yellow Turban Rebellion. And I have trained a bunch of troops, giving me, replenishment plus 10%. Lovely, that's what I wanted to see. Now, you may also notice I've suddenly got visibility of Liu Bei's territory, or at least a tiny bit of it. Yeah, trade routes give you visibility, not of the entire province, but of the road between your territory and theirs. Which makes a huge amount of sense, and it's a very lovely touch. And as a result of that, I know for a fact that his army is chilling out right there, recovering. So he's not making a move to the south too quickly. So I'm not in a desperate rush to get moving just yet. In fact, I believe I just got myself a bonus 10% to replenishment, because I trained a bunch of units. So as a result of that, I'm going to hold for one more turn. And that's because it's winter right now. If you engage in a battle during winter, it massively slows down your movement on the battle map. And I don't want to be moving slowly when the enemy has got plenty of archers. That would give him the advantage. So I'm going to wait until spring. And there we go. Cherry blossoms, everything is just flippin' lovely. And as for, Liu Bei, he's left the iron mine, but of course we don't know where he's gone, because this is all the visibility I've got. But it's very likely he's heading down here towards Lang Yi. This is why I want to lock down this place, and so he doesn't immediately swing north and take it. Because I want to take this, because lumberyards produce wood, and I want to have as many unique resources in my empire as I can get my hands on. So, my army has recovered very, very nicely indeed. It's time for us to move down and take this place out. Now, naturally, of course, I could starve these guys out if I wanted to, because, tiny sub-regions generally have no supplies whatsoever, so they'll start taking attrition immediately. Honestly, often not a bad idea, but with a trebuchet in hand, I think we can handle this. Here we go, a lumberyard. So this place is a bit interesting. It's like a glade that's on the low ground. The high ground are all around it, and obviously I can approach from any angle I want to, but every single choke point is actually guarded by towers, and all of them kind of overlook each other, so it's pretty difficult to find a good angle. This feels okay. Approaching from this angle, that wouldn't be so bad, though ideally I need a straight shot for my trebuchets to fire in without hitting a bunch of trees or whatever. Yeah, this would do. We'd have a lovely straight shot from here straight onto these guys, and I believe those over there, there's a little bit of overlap, but only for a moment. You are not in range of those towers, but you are in range of them, because just look at the range of the trebuchet. It's ridiculous. It can basically almost hit the town centre from my start position. Love it. Start the battle here. Trebuchet crews. Obviously, you can see here they know which way I'm coming in. They're going to try and block it. But if they're going to try and block it, I'm going to take out their most powerful weapon, their towers. So I don't want these guys here. The trebuchets will give me a really big advantage in this fight to come. And okay, we just missed the tower, but we totally hit some of their guys. So we're still doing some good work here. There we go. They finally got a good hit on the tower. So a single boulder can do about 38% damage. But these things are not 100% accurate. So we might not be able to take out all of these towers. In fact, we might not even take out one of them. But we are at least doing a little bit of light damage to these guys. They're taking some light knocks. They're not happy about life. Oh, come on, guys. We just need one more hit. One more good hit, guys. I believe in you. You can do this. And down goes tower number 1. Fine. So, guys, actually, stop right there for a second. How much ammo do you have? That's 3 shots. The chance of them taking down this tower is basically non-existent because they need to hit every single shot and they're not that accurate. So the best thing I can do instead is tell them to target these troops right here. Because this is basically most of what they've got. They're sending one small unit over here to guard this side door and another small unit over here. Because sub-regions, the garrisons are not insignificant. And the last few rocks come in, take out a handful of archers, and look at that. That does some serious damage right there. So we've really badly wounded them. And right here, we've halved the firepower at their front door. So, I think I know what we need to do right now, and that is just move forward, shields at the front to eat their archer fire. Meanwhile, my own archers and my crossbowmen get up behind and knacker these guys. And keep the cavalry back, but ready to move in. Because if they abandon any of these gates, I might be able to get my cavalry just snuck in through a side gate to actually, hang on. Let's get over here. Right, I'm going to deploy my cavalry round in this direction. Ready to potentially just take a few hits off these towers, because then we can get around the back, and here we go. They're already starting to reposition. What are they thinking right now? Okay, you guys, time to start moving forward. Shields at the front. So you guys just, move forward as quick as you can into range. You guys, get right up behind them, please. So if you guys just want to move over here, honestly, you don't even need to be that far forward because the range on archers in this game by default is really, really high. It's great. Though I think that might actually be my crossbows who have got the longest shot. So, that's the crossbows. So you guys just draw it right there. My archers are going to need to go forward a little bit further, though this point should be good enough. So you guys, open fire. You guys, open fire too. So now we can start laying down a big amount of fire on these guys, and they don't have shields. So they are just going to start melting. Let's just get right down amongst them for this. In comes the firepower, and in fact, actually, this is their captain. So this is their most elite unit right here. Guys, push in. Push in right now. I think they're ready to just be knocked over. So we're taking some light knocks off the artillery, but with this much firepower, they can't stand up to this. They cannot stand up to this. They're already fleeing. This is beautiful. Guys, start moving in. I can see we've got archers at the back there, so we probably want to charge towards them as fast as possible, just to actually, yeah, close the gap. So that tower will probably fall to us pretty darn quickly. Guys, you start moving in right the hell now. Just get into position to lay down some counterfire on their archers. Where's my cavalry? Because at this point, I wouldn't mind it just breaking in. So they're trying to guard that flank. Screw it, get the cavalry back over here. Do I want to send in reinforcements at this point? Yes, screw it. Send in everything. Send in the rest of the cavalry. There are some light hits coming in off those towers over there, which I don't really want to be involved with. So let's get these guys a little bit further forward. Those guys are falling back at this point. Weaken, guys. Go and take out the... Oh, yeah. Intercepting me nicely. That's fine. I can lay down a lot of fire on these guys already. They're going to try and intercept, but if they move away from the gate, I'm just going to move in my cavalry. So send my cavalry in immediately through this gate they're abandoning to try and counteract my archers. So one of you guys just, yeah, open fire over there. Two of you guys lay down some fire over the top of their spears. Because, yeah, archers can just lay fire over the top of your troops, which is very, very convenient indeed. And these troops, again, no shields. Look how fast they start falling apart when they're hit with actual archer fire. These troops over here are not my best either, so this is not necessarily great stuff. My archers are now inside the town, so they should be pretty safe. I'm going to just get them around the side of these here spears, see if I can get them around the back of these here archers. That'd work for me. So I've now got some cavalry on the other side of the town. My spear's doing a good job. In come the reinforcements. The strongest unit, go and intercept these guys. Everybody else, you just basically push forward and try and push to the plaza. At this point, we should be in a pretty good place. Cavalry is pretty happy with me. The amount of archer fire is really causing these guys to waver, which is beautiful. These guys have arrived just in the nick of time to actually provide some support to my archers who are about to get themselves flanked, so that's absolutely fine. Cavalry is round the back over here. Spears, or rather, yeah, halberds are guarding the back of these guys, but now they're starting to fall apart. My swords are taking a lot of damage too, and the town plaza will fall to me. That's not actually an instant victory, but it's a morale bonus to the defender when they're held. So this will be a big hit as soon as it falls. In fact, it might be enough to trigger a mass rout. No, no, no. Get my cavalry out of there. I don't want my cavalry taking more damage. These guys will take a big hit. There we go. We actually hold the center right now. We've got fire coming down on these guys. So at this point, we can start just chasing them off. Lovely. We've got archer fire coming in from the side. We've got infantry surrounding them. They are outnumbered. They are surrounded. They are being absolutely nailed by archer fire. In come my troops. By the way, I like the way coloring's done, which is troops aren't like, you know, dressed in colored gowns or anything, but they do carry clearly color-coded flags. So it's very easy to tell at a glance who's who using that. Now, who's left? Because it feels like they've pretty much all broken. There must be someone, whoever it was, they just broke, and we take the victory. Nice. So, we take the settlement. That's got to be worth a little bit of money. Move in and occupy it. I'd like it to make money, so I don't want it to actually lose anything. And I officially gain momentum plus 40% trade influence. There we go. So I'm just getting trade influence after trade influence. And the game wants me to actually create an assignment. Sure, I'll do that. Basically, this is a thing you can do in a province where you own the capital city to improve it in some way. Now, you might be wondering, hang on, who's Shi Yi and who's Sun Shao? These are characters in my court. Because right now my entire court is 5 people. Me, Kong Rong, together with the 2 generals that travel around with me, and 2 other people who may well be part of my family. Hang on, check the family tree here. No. In fact, right now I believe I'm unmarried and have no child. So I'll probably want to find someone to get married to at some point. Important diplomatic gesture, very good for cementing an alliance. So potentially someone in Liu Bei's family might be an excellent pick for that sort of thing. So right now, these guys aren't actually doing anything for me. I could call them up to be generous if I wanted to, so say if I wanted to raise a new army, they'll be very cheap to recruit next to people from abroad. So yeah, I could actually recruit those guys. They'd be very happy about that because it means they'd actually be doing something with their lives. For the time being, I don't actually need another army. I probably can't really afford it, to be honest. So instead, I'm going to give you guys an assignment. Supervise construction. Get the construction costs down. Get things built faster. Building upkeep down. Very, very good indeed. And Shi Yi, because he's a strategist, he can stimulate the market. So if I've got tons of commerce, he can get 75% income up from that, which again can be ludicrously valuable. They also both have education program, which they get because I'm Kong Rong. So that's a special thing for me, because I'm all about education and wisdom and trade and diddly dee. So pretty much the same thing, in fact, except yeah, I also get some population growth out of it. So definitely superior, but for the time being, I'm going to tell him to get on with supervising construction. So he's just going to do that now. Lovely. And more importantly, I've now got myself lumber, and my trade influence is ticking up nicely. So now if we have a look see at that trade I'm doing with Liu Bei, I'm now making 375 out of that, because my trade influence is accelerating away from him, so I'm getting more out of the trade. You can also only build one thing in a province at a time, so because I'm actually upgrading, yeah, the livestock farm, I can't do anything in the town of Beihai. Meanwhile, over here in Langye, that is technically a different province. So as a result of that, I can upgrade this place. And I'm going to do it because, one, that generates a bit more money, but two, just flipping look at that garrison. Alright, that is going to be 7 units of infantry, 4 units of archers. Yeah, that's going to be a tough nut to crack. And yes, indeed, somebody has just leveled up from what we've done. It's Kong Rong himself, he's up to level 4. So yeah, at this point we can start basically upgrading him in the direction of our choosing. So any of the ones that are kind of flashing and semi-grayed out are ones I could choose right now. So at this exact moment in time, he's got himself, yeah, a bunch of abilities saying +8 cunning, etc. Green ones obviously refer to resolve, so having resolve is not the worst thing in the world, it just keeps him alive in case he does run into trouble. Options are, yeah, if I just wanted to make him even more cunning to get even more ammunition, I could take bonus 8 cunning immediately, together with bonus experience and plus 40% income for commerce, silk and spice for an administered commandery. But I'm not really going to be administering a commandery because this guy's going to be out on the field. So that's not necessarily that useful to me. Oh, commandery just means province in this game, by the way. I will use both interchangeably. Ah, now this is interesting. Resourcefulness. Boosts my cunning, but also gives me flaming shot for my trebuchets. So a slightly slower attack, but more devastating against troops. Potentially very, very interesting indeed. This one's nice too, though. Reach. Boosts instinct, which isn't really useful for Kong Rong, because it makes it more effective in a fight, and honestly that's not what strategists are for, but plus 25% campaign movement range. That's nice, actually. That's very, very nice. I'm really tempted by resourcefulness, because that does actually move me in the direction of precision for 10% ranged armor-piercing damage, and then fire arrows for my troops, which is very, very cool, and night battles too. But, as I'm going to be running around trying to deal with a lot of provinces for the minute, I am actually going to take reach for the time being. Now, one more thing I definitely want to cover here. I mentioned at the beginning, this game you can actually play a bit on the tall side rather than necessarily just going wide. That's because in Total War traditionally, the game's basically said, hey, take over this many territories, defeat this one particular faction, and congratulations, you have won a domination victory. So, that's now changed. Instead, the ultimate goal in this game is to become emperor. Get yourself up to a king, and most factions can declare themselves emperor immediately. You get yourself up to king, meanwhile, by gathering prestige, not territory. And absolutely, holding a giant pile of territory does get you prestige. So this basic woodcutter camp I've taken over, that's plus 5 prestige right there. But upgrading your existing settlements without expanding also boosts prestige, right up to plus 50 prestige off a single city if you upgrade your provincial centres to the maximum level. Other building chains give small amounts of prestige too. Fully upgraded sub-regions give prestige too, so starting off at just 5 prestige, this place goes up to plus 15 nice and easy. And more importantly, some characters gain prestige for filling up their own personal meter. Kong Rong doesn't because he's too busy making a giant pile of money. I'm pretty sure Liu Bei is one of the characters that does. I think Yan Xiao might be as well. Zheng Zhang, the bandit queen, she's one of them. So there's a bunch of characters who, if you just basically commit to their preferred playstyle, you can get yourself well over 100 prestige just by maintaining a full personal currency meter. But Kong Rong has an additional twist on top of that. As a loyalist, he cannot declare himself emperor. He has to wait for other players to do it, and then go and steal their imperial seat off of them, which I think is a really cool mechanic. So at some point, as this game is called, you know, 3 Kingdoms, someone's going to say, hello, I'm Emperor. And 2 other people are at that point going to say, actually, I'm Emperor. No, I'm Emperor. So there's going to be 3 people who want to be Emperors. And they're going to immediately go to war with each other to get to decide who wants to be the one true Emperor, effectively forming the next dynasty, what would be the Jin dynasty in real Chinese history. But at that point, Kong Rong can actually stand up and say, no, I'm Emperor, and basically steal it from all of them. And that's beautiful. Ah, wait, hang on. We've got ourselves the beautiful reform tree. I love the reform tree. The reform tree's great. Choose the reform and it flowers, and I just love that. Now, as Kong Rong, I'm going to be wanting to go over here in the blue direction towards education, trade, all of that good stuff, because some of these techs also unlock new units. So at the beginning of the game, you've got a very limited choice of units, but as you go through the tech tree, loads of new units start unlocking, which is a very nice way of doing it. Still, here's not a bad one to start off with, as yeah, I can't actually have some of these techs until I've built some relevant buildings. So for the time being, yeah, register of land and population, 15% income from peasantry. That's where pretty much all my money's coming from right now, because both lumber yards and cattle farms generate money from peasantry, so not a bad starting point. Right, get time ticking along here, see if we get any movement nearby, because I suspect it's only a matter of time until... hello, yes indeed, there's Liu Bei, he's taken Lang Yi, which is kind of unfortunate. I was hoping he wouldn't do that, but it was very likely he would. So, he now owns a capital, and I now own an associated sub-region. So, luckily, there are ways we can sort that out. Before that though, interesting quest here. If I can get a trade income of at least 1,000, right now it's 368, I unlock the Path of Glory, 5 turns of 15% income bonus for peasantry, which would be very, very nice indeed. So, I need more people to trade with sooner or later. Now, how do we sort out the problem with Liu Bei squatting in a city that I ideally would like in the long run? Well, the new diplomacy system has one of my favourite additions, and sure it's a bit of a dry addition, but I think it's absolutely amazing, which is trade territory is now an option. And that doesn't just mean trade one bit of territory for another, it means territory is now just a thing you can throw into any diplomatic dealing whatsoever. So if I want to have the iron mine that he took at the beginning of the game, for example, I can basically say, hello, how much would you like to actually sell that for? And sure, I could offer him territory in return, but I could also just offer him a giant pile of money, or promise to pay him money every turn for the next 10 turns, or offer him food, because if he doesn't have much food, he might put a large value on that, or those little bonus items I've been picking up, the ancillaries, characters, powerful bonus items, all sorts of bits and pieces, including, yes indeed, marriage. So if I was looking for a wife and Liu Bei had a female character in court who I wanted to marry, that might be a good sweetener for the deal as well. Here we go, he actually wants military access from me, so I can actually sweeten the deal of wanting that mine off him by offering him that. I can offer him, yes, money on a regular basis. There we go, 500 gold up front, 600 gold for the next 10 turns, so 6,000 total, military access, and he'd just hand over that territory to me. And that's amazing, you don't have to go to war anymore. If you can make your economy powerful enough, and you can cultivate a good relationship with the person you're dealing with, so they don't just refuse to do business with you at all, you can basically buy an empire. And that's actually amazing. I absolutely love that. In fact, I almost wonder how much can you do just with money. And that's why I want to play with Kong Rong, because he is the master of making money, as well as being a massive nerd, and I love him. I'm not going to buy the mine right now, by the way. I don't need it right this second, but I just wanted to make it clear that's a thing we can, in theory, do. And the upgrade is done in Beihai. We've got a decent-sized garrison right there. May as well, yeah, just keep more and more money, more and more food being produced right there. Just upgrade that place if you be so kind. So what you want to keep Kong Rong right where he is for the time being, because, yeah, what Liu Bei just did is he used his special magic currency to kick the Han out of this territory, annexing it without a fight. So as a result of that, the army's been kicked out. It could make its way over to Lang Ye next turn, so I'm just going to keep my army here, just to make sure he naffs off to the south somewhere, because as soon as this place actually gets itself its upgrade next turn, it should be able to defend itself, but not before. Oh, we've got ourselves more Han armies floating around too. Right, I'm not sure what you guys want. Your army just naffed off. Lang Ye Lumberyard is now actually, I believe, ready to defend itself. So at this point, there is a good-sized garrison. There are towers. That place is training up nice and fast. My army is nearly back into good shape. And with that plus 25% I just took, oh yeah, now we can move around at speed. Because that there is a Han army with a decent number of troops. So hang on. That's Tai Shi Si. Right. I suspect me and him might have some dealings, actually, because Tai Shi Si is a character from history, or as close to history as you get in Romance of the Three Kingdoms. So, you know what? We're just going to see what develops there, because I suspect it might be something a bit more interesting than just a battle. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? I think you get the point. This here is Total War Three Kingdoms, and there is so much more to discuss yet. There are intricacies to trade. There is a population system that is very, very interesting indeed. The replenishment rate is really fascinating. That's tied to all sorts of mechanics. I think this might actually be possibly the most deep Total War game they've ever created. There are so many interesting mechanics here. So much I want to discuss yet. Together with, of course, yes indeed, there is an elite general of the Yellow Turbans floating around over here. Huang Shao, one of the faction leaders, and indeed one person you can choose to play as. And I can't help but notice, these guys are squatting on a trade port. And that is something I very much want to get my hands on, ladies and gentlemen. So, join me next time as we continue the Kong Rong playthrough. That is going to be taking our traditional strategy slot every Thursday and Sunday. Next time, we'll see if we can clear out as much of this northern tip of China as we can. But as we advance towards the river, we're going to start running into a whole bunch of other factions. We need to pick our friends and pick our enemies, because our friends we want to trade with, and our enemies, well, they need to be shot down by Kong Rong, the master strategist, because he's the greatest archery nerd who ever lived, and I love him. All of that coming very, very soon indeed. But in the meantime, I've been John. This has been many a true nerd, and this has been Total War Three Kingdoms. Thank you very much, and goodbye. This guy's enjoying that. This guy's enjoying his elephant a bit too much.
Oh my god.
In Fair Verona, we set our scene. Oh my god, Becky, look at her butt. It is so big. They've managed to glitch inside one of the buildings. Elephants in the rear! And then in come the chariots!